Welcome to this tutorial by River City Graphics. Today I'll be showing you how to use the UI loader component in Flash. So to get started, we're going to create an ActionScript 3 document. Then I'm going to go to File, Save As, and save this so that some of the ActionScript later on will work correctly. So I'm just going to say UI loader component, and I'm just going to save over that. And now that I've done that, I'm going to go to Window, Components, and I'm going to drag out 4 button components, and then I'm going to drag out the UI loader component. So I'll just scroll down, grab the UI loader, bring it out. Then I'm going to go to Window, Align, and grab my Align palette and select all of the buttons. Click this button right here to align the top edge, and then click right here to distribute the horizontal centers. So that will distribute them all so they have an even distance in between. And I'm actually going to space them out a little bit more. So now that I've done that, I'm going to move this towards the bottom here. And then I'm going to take my UI loader and we're going to scale that up. So I'm going to grab the transform tool, move the reference point to the corner, and then I'm going to size it up so that the width over all of the buttons. So I'm just going to position that a little bit with the arrow keys. And now I think that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to close that up, and then I'm going to grab the text tool and we're going to make a dynamic text box right here. And we're just going to position that underneath the buttons, the 2 middle buttons right there. And that's going to display some text for the percentage of what's loaded within our UI loader. So now we need to start adding some instance names. So for this, I'm going to click on the UI loader and then just say my loader, close that up, and then I'm going to go to each of these buttons and I'm just going to say BTN1, call this one BTN2, BTN3, and BTN4. Alright, so now that we've done that, I still need to add an instance name to this text field, so we're just going to call it %txt. Alright, so now that I've done that, we're going to open up the Actions panel, and now we're ready to start actually coding this out. So the first thing we need to do is grab the URL that's going to be loaded into this, this UI loader, and it's actually an image, so I'm going to make a variable for that. So I'm going to say var img URL for image URL, colon, and then string with a capital S, space equals space, couple of quotes, and a semicolon. Inside of the quotes, I'm going to type the URL that this image is at, and it's on my desktop, which is why I had to save it at the beginning of the tutorial. So it's in a folder called stock photos, and then slash, and it's a barn.jpg. Alright, so now that we have that done, we need to request this URL. So we need to make another variable, and it's going to be var space my request, colon, and it's a URL request. Alright, I'm just going to copy that because we're going to need that again in a second. Alright, and then after that we need space equals space, new, space, and then URL request, and then open parenthesis, img URL, close parenthesis, semicolon. So basically we're just requesting the URL that's in this variable right here. So the next thing we need to do is make sure that the content within this UI loader is scaled down. Instead of showing it full size what the actual content is, we're going to scale it to the size of the UI loader that we put on the stage. So we're going to say my loader.scale content, and the C on content is capital, and we need to say space equals space true semicolon. And then lastly, we need to load in this URL. First we made the URL, then we got a request for it, so now we need to basically link the URL with the loader. So we just have an enter, and then say my loader.load, open parenthesis, my request, close parenthesis, semicolon. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is add some event listeners for the percentage. So we're going to do this by basically setting up 2 event listeners, and one of them is going to be for while it's loading, and then the other one's going to be for once it's done loading. So I'm going to say my loader.add event listener. Alright, open parenthesis, event, actually let's make it capital event, dot complete, comma, and then we're just going to say load done. So that will be when it's actually finished loading. So then close parenthesis, semicolon. We need to add another one, and I'm just going to copy this because the start is basically the same. So my loader.add event listener, and then the event, instead of event, we're going to make it progress. event with a capital P and a capital E, and then instead of dot complete, we're going to say dot progress. And then for the function name, we're just going to say load. Let's just say load progress without a W. Alright, so now that we've done that, we need to create each of those functions. So I'm going to hit enter a couple times and say function, and we'll do load progress first. Space, and then event, colon, progress, event. Let's see if it's got it in here. Progress event, and then close parenthesis, colon, void, open curly bracket, enter a couple times, close curly bracket, and then up arrow key. And inside of here, we're basically going to set the percent text to, let me just type it out and then I can explain it. So we're going to say percent txt dot text space equals space, and then it's going to be math dot round, open parenthesis, event dot target dot percent loaded, and the L on loaded needs to be capital, and then a close parenthesis, space, plus, space, and then a couple of quotes, and inside the quotes we're going to have a percent sign, and then at the very end a semicolon. So basically what this is doing is it's setting the percent text, which we set at the very bottom there, to the number, the percent loaded of what's in the UI loader. So we're getting event.target.percent loaded is getting the percentage that's loaded of the UI loader of the image, and then it's rounding that with the math.round function, and then at the very end we're just adding on a percent sign. So it'll look like whatever it has. This whole thing right here is the number, so it'll be like 50, and then it'll add this percent sign at the end so that it just graphically looks better. So the next thing we need to do is write that other function. So we're going to say function, and then we said load done, and then space, events, colon, events with a capital E, close parenthesis, colon, void, open curly bracket, enter a couple times, close curly bracket, up arrow key. And then basically once it's done, we just want to set the percent text to not have anything displaying because it's done loading, so you don't really need to sit there and see it on 100%. So we'll say percent txt dot text space equals space, a couple of quotes, and a semicolon, so it'll basically be equal to nothing. Alright, so I think that we can do control test movie right now, and you should see the first image right here. If I do simulate download, you'll see that the percentage is coming in for that image, and then it displays once it's done and takes the text away. So the next thing that we're going to do is basically set up a little kind of image gallery with those buttons. So I'm just going to hold down the slash key, which basically this doesn't show up. It's not ActionScript. It's basically just a comment thing. So I'm using it to separate our code so that you guys can kind of graphically see the difference. This is basically setting up the image that's starting the gallery, and then underneath this we're going to start with the buttons and the functions that run loading in those images. So we're going to say btn1, and we're just going to write some labels first. So btn1.label space equals space, a couple of quotes and a semicolon, and we're just going to say, let's just keep it simple and just say image1, and I'm just going to copy that, paste it 3 times. We'll make this 2, make this 3, make that 4, and the same thing for these images. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need to add some event listeners for each of these, and we'll say btn1 dot add event listener, open parenthesis, it's going to be a mouse event, and that's capital M and a capital E, dot click in all caps, comma, space, and then we need a function name, and I'm just going to say load image 1, close parenthesis, semicolon. So I'm just going to copy that, and then we're going to change that one according to the number that the image and button is. So we're going to say btn1, btn3, btn4, and then load image 2, 3, and 4. So it's going to run each of those functions depending on what's clicked. So now we're going to write those functions. So we're going to say, let's say function load image 1. and then space, open parenthesis, event, colon, mouse, event, close parenthesis, and then a colon, and then a void, open curly bracket, enter a couple times, close curly bracket. And then inside of this, we're going to load in basically everything that we have up here. So I made this divider here so that it would be really easy to just go back up and copy all of that. So basically when they click the button, we want it to say, I don't care what that image was before, we're loading in a new image into this UI loader. So it's going to, instead of having all this, it's going to put in whatever other image we do. So actually I'm just going to paste this in here, and the only thing that we need to change is this variable right here, this image URL string right here. We're going to change the image. On this one we don't need to because we want that first image to be the same as the image that initially loads, but for the next one we're going to change it. So I'm going to basically just copy this function. Let me scroll this up so that I can grab the whole thing. We're going to copy this function, and I'm just going to hit enter a couple times so that you can see the difference. And then we need to change this to load image 2, and then we want this to load the second image, which is going to be butterfly. It's the other image I have. And then we're going to hit enter a couple times more, paste it again, and then for that image it's going to be bridge. And then I'm going to hit enter a couple more times, and we're going to paste the last image in there, and it's going to be coast. Alright, so I hope you guys followed that. Basically, oh, I forgot, I need to change this. I have load image 2 is the function. We need load image 3 and load image 4. Alright, so just to recap, basically we are creating 4 functions so that whenever a button is clicked, it's going to run that function, and it's going to load in a new image into the UI loader, and it's going to run the percentage and everything just like it did for the initial image. So I think we're ready to test this now, so we're going to go to Control Test Movie. Alright, you can see our initial image loaded in. We'll click on image 2, and it loads those in, and it's not doing the percentage because I haven't done simulate download. I just wanted to show you how the images work. If you do simulate download, it's going to start with the first image. Should be the barn. Alright, when you click on another one, it'll load that in. And the benefit of using the UI loader over other methods is sometimes with other methods you might load in an entire Flash file rather than loading in pieces. And this might be fine if your Flash file is small, but if you're doing something like a website, most users aren't going to look at an entire website, and they might find it kind of offensive to sit there and wait for your entire website to load before they can use it. So using UI loaders, you basically load what they want to see. So they're going to see a piece of the website, so it'll load once they get to what they want to see, and it'll load much quicker. So it's a much better way to load items within Flash. So as you can see, I can go through these and they'll load in. Once it's loaded, it's going to keep doing it up to 100%. It's not going to be quick because I keep simulating the download every time. But once it's on the web, it would load very quickly. So I hope you guys learned something about the UI loader and learned how to use the percentage on it, and learned how to load at runtime rather than loading an entire thing beforehand. So don't forget to subscribe, rate, and comment, and I'll have the last tutorial in our component series tomorrow, so check back for that. Thanks for watching.